All right, today we're going to go into a very interesting topic. As always, I thought I should make a video on physical health in history. This is a real interesting one because it's very hard to really pinpoint, but I think I have just the thing. So, the best way to do it, in my opinion, we have to start with what physical health is like now, and then kind of bring it back to the more historical standpoint and probably bring it forward again to then show you all the connections that are made from the physical health standpoint in history. Just a quick note here that physical health does have a tie to mental health as well in the historical sense, so we will take a look at that probably as well. So let's start. Right now, we'd say that the average person checks their phone once every 6 to 10 minutes. That being said, we'd also have to put the context that you think about checking your phone before you check it, and then you kind of resist checking your phone. So this takes a lot of time and thought, actually, and this happens less than every 6 minutes. So we'd say then, what's supposed to happen if we weren't checking our phone? What would be happening in those 6 to 10 minutes? We would have thoughts about our own ideas, our own ways of thinking, our own experiences. But if we're continually getting feedback from something outside ourselves in such a quick time span, then this is going to diminish that ability. Then it'd take a while to be able to think about our own thoughts, find our own bearings, understand our own perspectives. We'd seemingly be lost in a world that tells us who we are. So this is going to be the loss of physical health. To add another layer to that, when we hear somebody say, or our elders say, these kids know nothing about music, are they wrong? No, they're right. Meaning that the quality and value of music was a different standard before. We'd say it was probably more of a healthy version, meaning it had more value in it. This is generally why we complain about not having enough value, or the old people say that the kids know nothing about music. In fact, to put this in the right context, we'd say that a whole value system has vanished like an ecosystem into nothingness. Therefore, the newer generation has to deal with what is now here and try to build on this. This is exactly like, taking care of the planet. We do cut trees down, air becomes less. Who deals with it? The younger generation having less air and has to try to make up for lost things without knowing how to particularly restore it. This would be that kind of cycle. So in this same pattern, we have this loss of what we'd call mental environment, which actually is more of the ability to experience what's happening. So if our brains would come to a different conclusion based on the historical era that we're in, and this conclusion would be closer based to the physical experience, what's actually happening, and we have been losing this over time, then our mental solutions would also become less. So, can we demonstrate this? Yes. So, if we were to say, if something was broken nowadays, what would you do to fix it? You'd buy a new one. This takes very little internal resource to do. You just have to have physical resource, money, to be able to buy a new one. Well, back in the day, you would fix it. You'd buy some new wires, you'd find a tape, you'd ask a friend, your uncle would know how to do it, and therefore you are building experience in yourself to be able to fix or mend at least your thing that you have bought. So we see again, this is a dissipation of internal potential, which is our physical resource or physical health, the ability to do things for ourselves, from ourselves. This becomes less. If we look into the theory of affordances, this is exactly it. This is taking somebody else's way of thinking with the affordances, but really painting the exact same picture. We'd say that we've done it in a more mechanical way. We've changed the theory to the car allows us to go this fast is good, we pay attention to the speed of the car. We don't really take in all the pieces that are made up to have the car experience anymore. We just know that we have a fast car. And in this way, can we value this thing? Not really. After a certain amount of time, when there's a faster car, we then see less value in the one that we have and pursue this new one. This would be the opposite of how historical things are. If we look in the Great Depression, per se, we did with what we had. We played with rocks, we played with cabbages, we had dolls out of potato sacks. These kind of things show a kind of internal resource. You can't make it through such a challenge without having internal resource. And then you see that just because they played those games, and at the time they might have thought that, it's no big deal, but it shows to us now the value of having that resource. This being said, this would also be seen in the kind of inventions that we have. We'd say that there was a time where philosophers or thinkers or artists would not create certain things, not because it was impossible for them to do, but because it wasn't as beautiful as other things. So we'd say things intrinsically had a beauty in them. Therefore, certain things were not done. There are cultures where you were not able to create something without that potential beauty in it. This would be considered a crime, essentially. So we'd say that there was higher values on things that we no longer value the same way now. This would also show the lack of physical health because we're lacking these experiences of the beautiful things. Poetry was of a different nature, actually closer to nature, back when we were more in our bodies. We'd say that also the ability to bring out something beautiful has to start with the perception of it. To really put it into words, we must have felt it or seen it and experienced it, and in that pursued this, let's call it sensing material, until we had the ability to put it into words, which is quite a process. And in finally doing so, how we spoke about an event became beautiful. That's the idea of poetry, right? So that being said, and most of these things being done in tremendous value, quality, and beauty, way more in our history than our present day. We would consider what we do now as beautiful only because we lack the ability to perceive the beauty in what truly is so. So again, this shows a lack of physical health. And again, our definitions would change as we see in definitions in the dictionary, changes over time based on society. We'd say the original words that were being used had a different mental landscape with the use of them, which means that they'd also have a different physical experience attached to those words. I think that we don't particularly dig deep enough into what a word is to begin with, so therefore we lose some value in that. Let's do that right now, actually. Let's do it on the fly. All right, so we think of a word as just something that describes something else. Pretty straightforward. However, you could use many different words to describe that exact same thing. So we're selecting words specifically to try to give the best definition to what is happening. So what are words trying to define? Words are always trying to define an experience. So we'd say then, how good are words at describing an experience? Not very good. This is very well known with most people that do writing as their career. You seem to be at a loss for words in many situations. I guess that's a good way to put it. So then we'd say the words must be trying to describe something far greater than themselves, which is our experience. So then we'd say the only way that words are capable of doing something like that is in their symbolic meaning. So me using a word has an experience with it. Therefore, the person knowing that experience understands the word better and then applies it to the situation that did happen. So this being said, if we know now that words are only trying to embody experience, we'd say the right use of words would have to be done by somebody who has the experience themselves very much understood. therefore choosing the right words. We're back to kind of poetry here. When the right word is chosen, it has greater value. This value, again, is symbolic to something greater than the experience itself, something that takes more time to even cultivate than that. We then extract value into beauty, this thing that cannot be put into words, that has value, that has symbolism in it, and therefore speaking deeper to the person. We'd say then this thing, as experience, speaks, if you will, to the soul. This is the power of music. Music then being a non-verbal language, speaking directly to the soul or the subconscious, if you will, and therefore bringing about expression in the person, which is going to be physical. This physical thing then being of the body specifically. So then we get something like body language or body gestures or body movements or body contractions, body symbols, if you will. And this is more the deeper root of words. What came before words, we'd say this kind of bodily expression, truly showing the experience of the event. But if a person's not there, we go back to having to use words. So this is how that whole thing comes about. And if we are to put all those things together into one valid chunk of experience, if you will, then we would get a different use of words. We wouldn't choose words the same way. This being said, we'd say that after going through a certain experience, even the use of the exact same word has a different value to it. We'd say that if we saw somebody, visually we're going to make this comparison just to make it a little bit more easy. If we saw somebody who was kind of out of shape and they were going to be our fitness coach and they told us we need to exercise 5 times a week, how much value would that have? Not much, because we look at them and be like, what do they know about fitness? But if we hear the exact same words from somebody who visually looks like they do have this experience, we take it a lot more earnestly. This bodybuilder or athletic performer says to you, all right, we're going to work out 3 times a week. It's a must. Here goes our program. You'd say, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. The feeling of his words based on his visual look seem like they have more value, more of this solid thing that speaks deeper to us. Therefore, we would pay more attention to it, if that is our goal, actually. Therefore, we can see that a person can embody experience, therefore have more value. This is the idea with the elders being wise. Having so many years, they've had the ability to cut through the superfluousness of social norms or those kind of things and see deeper into what is as it is, and therefore give advice that is striking and more has this feeling of endurance or longevity in it. These two would be part of the physical health experience as a thing. So we've went through a lot of content, way more than probably I should have put in this video. However, just use it to stretch your minds to try to elaborate on just the simple thing of one experience can have deeper levels of the exact same thing in it. And then we want to think to ourselves, at what level are we? And how can we put more experience into this thing? This has generally always been pursued after in the way of having a discipline and art, something we find inspiring or beautiful, that we persist at or pursue at many costs, sparing almost no costs. Therefore, in pursuing this thing so persistently, we go through the different layers of the exact same thing that's needed to truly understand our passion. There we go. That is all in a nutshell. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, and thank you for listening.